You could not look more tired at the moment.
I'm having a little bit of a computer delay, but we'll get through it. Um, so we are here at Inside LP, where we take you inside what we are discussing, working on. Laughing Place. We have a little bit of a time today, but I did want to talk some about what the changes coming to Disney parks, I guess. So,
Mostly Disneyland, but this does affect both parks, so it depends on where you want to start.
so why
Both
don't we
resorts,
start
I
with
should
sort of
say.
I think like the top line here is most
Everything is more
interesting.
expensive.
Right. Yeah. It's everything is more expensive. I think you did a great in our internal Slack, a little inside baseball. You did the right thing where you basically just did the everything is awesome meme, except everything's more expensive.
Yes, that's the overarching theme. Most of it today is focused at Disneyland, mostly because the ticket prices, which are very obvious to track thing, have gone up. So they kept the lowest ticket price is the same. The $104 for a 1 day, one park ticket is that's the same. It's been since 2019. But this interesting little trick that they did is now that's tier 0. So there are now 7 tiers, but it only goes up to tier 6. So tier 1 tickets that were $104 are now 114, but they've added tier 0 days somewhere, presumably in, well, normally it would happen like the early January is one of the deader periods, but then later in January they're going to have the Disney 100 kickoff, so that's going to complicate matters. But anyway, so yes, 7 tiers now. Tier 0 stays at $104, and everything rose for the one park 1 day by about $10, except tier 6 went up $15. And then the other addition for that is that now if you're adding park hopping to a 1 day ticket, that's a $65 upgrade instead of a $60 upgrade. Whereas if you're adding park hopping to multi-day tickets, then it's still the same $60 upgrade. But of
Well,
course, the multi-days went up as well.
and so while the 1 day one park ticket theoretically the lowest price did not change, the lowest price for a park hopper ticket did go up by about $5.
Yes.
So, what's interesting about this is I think we all understand inflation. I think it's park prices go up. I don't know that this one bothers me as much as some others have, because it's for the most part it's not super out of line with what the inflation rate is, which is kind of what it should be. But it's kind of the way they message it.
Yeah, this tier 0 thing, for example, is just a very odd move. It's like they wanted to have a way to say, "Hey, we haven't changed our bottom ticket price in X amount of years." It's like, well, you did, because the people that might have purchased a day yesterday at $104 might have to purchase it today at $114.
Well, and there's nothing to say what these tiers are. I mean, the number of days per tier could, suddenly everything could be almost everything could be tier 6 with like a day here and 5. I'm not saying that's what they're doing, but it just makes it hard to compare an apple to apple. A random Wednesday in October might not be the same tier as it was last year.
Right, and you also see really dramatic pricing differences between a weekday and a weekend. Like you might be saving, for a family, you could save hundreds of dollars just by, doing a Wednesday to Saturday trip instead of a Saturday to
Right, which
Monday.
makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
the parks are busier on the weekends, and it never made sense really if you thought about it that Saturday costs the same as Thursday. But
I mean, I think there's an argument to maybe that it does kind of make sense in some sense, because the people going on the weekdays would just enjoy the lighter crowds. That was the benefit. You're paying the same price, but you're getting a probably better experience depending.
yeah, I just don't know if that's the same, if that's been consistent. Like, I think Disney's done a good job of kind of yield managing, and even when I go on a weekday, it's not slow anymore. It's not like it used to be.
Right, exactly. That's
I was just there on a random Wednesday in September, and it was busy.
well, then I guess they're meeting their goal because that was always what they were pushing towards was saying that they wanted to space that demand out across the calendar.
Right. I mean, which makes sense if you're looking from a business side, which most fans don't, understandably. You have an asset, you want to manage it so it's constantly churning, but not overutilized on some days. And Disneyland always kind of had the church on Easter Sunday problem where it would be, New Year's Eve and 4th of July, the park doesn't get bigger for those days. And even though the demand is exponentially higher.
No, the biggest trick now is that there's no more time of year that's an off season. But if you see that it's going to rain all day, or maybe even for an hour, beat the rain down there because otherwise you'll be sitting in a parking lot all the way down the 5. But once you get to Disneyland, it'll be empty.
Some other sort of incremental changes on pricing. Parking stays the same. Regular parking. The preferred parking goes up $5. Hotels self-parking stays the same, but valet goes up $15, which to me that drives me crazy because it's it's kind of like resort fees or any of that stuff. It's like, tell me what you're going to charge, and $65 for Anaheim just seems like a lot for valet.
So is valet, is that for overnight guests, or even if you like had a reservation at Goofy's and you're going to park at Disneyland Hotel, is there an hourly rate and that's the daily max?
Validated for like 3 hours if you
Okay.
ate there. But from an overnight standpoint, that's a significant percentage of a room. I mean, it's almost like New York prices.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. But it is what it is. I guess they really don't want you to valet is really short answer, despite the fact they built the hotels to really make you want to valet. Like Grand California and self-parking across the street just doesn't feel like,
a premium product.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you kind of scroll by it there, but I think we should probably hop over to the other article to talk about the changes to Disney Genie.
So this is where it gets a little complicated. So there's been changes at Disneyland and Disney World. However, the product's not exactly the same. So Disneyland is raising the price of Genie pre-arrival price from $20 to $25. Then,
so that 20% discount that lower pass holders get is now moot.
Well, I mean, they still get it. Just
yeah.
Which is interesting to me, though, because, we'll get to it when we get to Disney World. Now, day of pricing will start at $25, but is now demand-based. Now, we don't know what that means. Let me see if I can even see if in the app what it would be like for today. I don't know if it'll let me.
Well, today I think it's probably its base price. But yeah, so basically the lowest it will be is $25, but it could be higher on busier days. So I'd imagine that if you look at the ticket pricing calendar, it's going to whatever their numbers are, which they didn't really give us an idea. Well, Disney World did, Disneyland didn't. But you could probably guess, like if, for example, if $28 is the next tier up, then when you see the ticket price go up to its tier 2 or whatever, then that would probably be, a $28 day and things like that.
Yeah. And what's interesting to me here is that it's significantly more expensive than Disney World. Now, Disney World, you can't pre-purchase. It's only day of purchasing.
Yeah, that changed over this early this summer, like June.
Right. And different guest mix kind of thing.
Non-favorable attendance mix at Disneyland?
I didn't say that.
Okay. Making sure.
But they're also going to on-demand pricing. They start at 15 and the range they start at 15, and for example, for the month of October, which does not necessarily mean it's a cap.
It definitely does not mean it's a cap.
Right, because it's October. Like, I'm sure if you go New Year's Eve, it's at least 25. But the range for the month is about $7. So 15 for a slow day, $22 for a busy day. But so even if you apply the $7 range, that would make Disneyland $32. It's probably more like a $10 range, for a premium day. Now, I know at Paris where they did something, they don't have Genie, but they have their Premier Access, which is more just like an instant go on a ride once per thing, which is not the same product as Genie. I understand that. Their pricing has gone crazy, like €100 kind of thing. So it really depends on the demand. Now, we've heard from Bob Chapek that most guests, that like about half of the guests use Genie, and most guests that use it, will say they would book it again. So this is a big deal economically for the Disneyland Resort and Walt Disney World, because if that's basically raising the price of a ticket for half the guests without raising the price of a ticket.
Well, what I wonder is, and I don't know if it might already be out there, but I wonder if there's going to be calendars for this so people know ahead of time, because especially at Walt Disney World, where you can only purchase the day of.
I asked that question and the answer was no.
Cool. So good luck with that.
The way to know is you pop up in the app that day. So I guess you could probably do some guessing based off of once you get a history, but there's not any sort of hey, it's going to be this price on this day, this price on this day.
Yeah, which is, I mean, the thing people always talk about when they talk about Genie Plus and individual Lightning Lane is comparing it to Universal's Express product, and that is also variable. But the difference is that when you go to buy it, you see how much it's going to be that day.
Well, and the interesting thing
and it's also a lot more expensive, but yes, it's a different product.
It's also, because there's only purchases day of, it's not actually demand-based. It's based off what they anticipate demand-based.
Right. But yeah, it's still demand-based tickets. Yeah. But then the other change I wanted to mention at Disneyland is that, so earlier this summer, Walt Disney World moved a lot of so when it first launched, each park had 2 individual Lightning Lane, and then they, for the summer, moved this basically the second tier ones to Genie Plus instead of being individual Lightning Lane. And then that was supposed to revert. They canceled it reverting, so now there's only one. And now Disneyland's the same way, because they have moved Web Slingers from being an individual Lightning Lane to being a Genie Plus offering. So now the only individual Lightning Lane at California Adventure is Radiator Springs Racers, and the only one at Disneyland, and it always has been, I think, is Rise of Resistance.
Yeah, so I mean, there's the justification being they're adding more value to Genie Plus, justifying the price increase. I will say I prefer Genie Plus compared to like an individual Lightning Lane, in that you're getting basically one ride for the same. You get a bunch of rides versus the same price of one ride.
For context, right now, Web Slingers with Genie Plus, the next reservation is at 3:30 p.m. And the other ones, Incredicoaster is at 12:10, Grizzly River is at 11:05, because it's probably a little bit chilly. Most of them are between 12 and 2. So it's not sold out yet, but it is pacing ahead of some of the other Genie Plus offerings today.
Now, in the other news that's related, earlier last week, they announced basically the 100th anniversary stuff coming to Disneyland as part of the 100 Years of Wonder. But they announced that ticket reservations will be paused starting January 9th. In the end, it didn't make any sense in terms at the time, because the celebration started January 27th. In the end, we found out why, is they wanted these people to pay more money for their tickets. So those reservations are now available. And the others, the celebration will still start January 27th with the opening of Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, in addition to the new nighttime spectaculars at Disneyland and Disney World. I mean, at Disneyland and California Adventure.
Yeah, this was kind of weird. Like, why did they bother making it? Well, first of all, you're like, why didn't they make the announcement at D23? And now you're like, well, then why didn't they hold it for another week? Like, so many confusing things from their decisions.
Yeah, and it's interesting is they gave us the. I'm going to share some of the infographics they sent us, um, and I don't know if they really intended it to come across this way, but they sent us two things. One was a list of things happening at Disney parks over the past couple of years, and I'll pull that up in just a second.
And that explains why Disneyland raising its tickets is justified because the Disney parks around the world have done
Right. I mean, they included like Tokyo Disneyland and stuff, and made no sense.
Like, you don't even pay for that.
But give me one sec. They
He's gonna find this graphic. It's gonna be so exciting, guys. You have
no,
idea.
it's not. And unfortunately, my computer's barely hanging on for this for some reason. But in any case, the idea is that they not slowing down. Like they keep they're expanding, and there's always something new at the Disneyland Resort, which is true. There is always something new, but the thing is that most of these things replace old things. There's old things that have not yet reopened, and it's let me see if I can.
And some of these, yeah, it's like, oh, lots of green spaces. That's been the big theme, is they're putting new green spaces in. But yeah, and then isn't it also like, if you've looked at, like, they have started ramping back up capital expenditures, but they are still down from previous years.
Well, that's the thing is that yeah, it's not the capital. They have slowed down. I mean, not just based on attractions or anything, but based off of the expenditures. They have slowed down their capital expenditures, and I mean, I don't think anyone has any qualms about that because of the pandemic, but it's a BS excuse. And so for example, here's so much to see and do. A couple of these, like, I don't know that Tree of Life Awakenings is going to really change the needle for a Disneyland guest, or even
Shanghai managed to open their Tron.
Yeah, and then if you look at the Disney Wish, right, and it's, and then they were like, "Whoa!"
They
We
the
announced
Lion King at Disneyland.
They did, which replaced a show that was there already with, I think, a larger cast. And 10 announcements from D23 Expo. So absolutely, World of Color 1 and Wondrous Journeys will be coming, but they're replacing World of Color OG and whatever fireworks show would be there anyways. I never before seen third attraction coming to Avengers Campus, which hasn't broken ground. The Incredible Hulk appearing now for a limited time. I mean, absolutely, Runaway Railway is an addition. It's the one addition on this list. Mandalorian and Grogu, character meet and greet. Pixar Place Hotel has nothing to do with ticket prices. That's just staying at a hotel. The Bakery coming to Downtown Disney. Portos, great, but anyone can go to Downtown Disney. Return of Magic Happens. You're just bringing something back that should have been here. And Run Disney,
a 2-week run.
Right, and Run Disney Races. I mean, that's an add-on thing. You don't get that with a ticket. And and then you still have a lot, Hyperion is still closed. You still don't have a night parade. So, you're not quite where you were. Now, Avengers Campus did open after the pandemic, and that is an incremental change, but that happened a while ago. So until Runaway Railway opens, you're still sort of running at a lower run rate than you were before the pandemic. So I totally understand the prices going up because inflation, like that makes sense. But I think we need to be honest in that the margins at Disney parks continue to get higher, and the capital investment has not returned to pre-pandemic levels, and so you're not getting more for the same amount of money, despite what they say, unless you go on a tier 0 day.
Yeah, and I don't know how many tier 0 days there are, but
yeah, I mean that's the real question, right? Is how does the calendar adjust to all this stuff? But I mean, I kind of want to look at the capex. It's hard because it's been so ebb and flowy over the last decade, so it's not really it's not a consistent line. Because obviously, Galaxy's Edge was a huge expenditure. Avengers Campus was, there was a time we would just go, wow, they're really spending a lot of money, and that's gone. And so my case as a Disney fan would be like, hey, the nice thing about limiting attendance is there's a business reason to increase right, because then you can put more guests in. But that none of this is that. This is not increasing the park size. So they got to do their thing to justify a price increase. I get it, but let's be honest, this is just a price increase.
Yeah, and especially with like the Genie Plus stuff, like you figure that people who are going to the Disney parks probably just figured out how Genie Plus actually works, because it was very convoluted to begin with. And then especially given the fact that there's Genie, which is free, and then Genie Plus, and then individual Lightning Lane, which is kind of a name that wasn't there. It didn't seem to be their official nomenclature. We just needed another word for it. So it kind of became official nomenclature. And then they continued to make changes to that. So all these people that are just keeping up with how the thing actually works are now going to show up and not know how much it costs. They'll know what the base price is. So at that point, they're going to be like, all right, well, I already dedicated myself to spending this money. So for a family of 4, I will go ahead and spend another $30 on this, even though I wasn't expecting to. In addition to the food and the savis and the things that we didn't even get into yet.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's the, I think we all get that those prices are going to increase too, and they're not, when inflation's 10%, whatever, right? The prices.
This isn't I understand that, but like the tickets, yeah, but like the food and stuff has risen, or they've done the portion things famously throughout. So it's not like inflation is continuing. It's still 8% from where it was a year ago or whatever, but it's not continuing to tack on 10% every month or anything like that.
Well, in Magic, one thing that is helping people out is Magic Key holders and annual pass holders are getting a 30% merchandise discount, which is about as high as I've ever seen it for a non-cast member. So the fact that all these people ordered stuff when there was no supply chain and all came in at the same time is helping people save money on their Disney merchandise. But yeah, prices are going up. And I mean, everywhere. It's not just Disney. It's not, and they're going up faster than wages for most people. So, I don't. This is one of those times where it'll be interesting to see what happens. I know Walt Disney World is currently in union negotiations for a new contract, and it'll be interesting to see where those rates end up, because that's obviously Disney's biggest cost is wages. Expenses on not just their hourly rate, but their benefits and all that stuff. And I know insurance rates are skyrocketing as well. So now that being said, it's pretty clear if you look at the financials that Disney price increases are far outpacing their cost increases. But that's capitalism for you.
All right, so should we do a quick recap before we get out of here?
Sure.
So Disneyland is the big one. Disneyland's prices across the board for their day tickets have gone up. There is still a $104 option, as there has been since 2019, but that is now tier 0. with certain days. The least busy days will be that $104. Other than that, tickets went up between $10 to $15 for single day. Park hopper adds $65 instead of $60 for single days. Multi-days went up varying amounts of money. No increase on parking, but the base rate for Genie Plus has gone up from $20 to $25. And moreover, if you don't purchase it ahead of time, it's variable. So it could be more than 25 depending on how busy it is and what price they set for it that day. And then some other more random changes. Savi's Workshop and Droid Depot at both coasts have increased their prices. It went from Droid was 100, now it's going to 120, and Savi's was 220, and now it's going to 250. So those are pretty big jumps there, especially for something that was already a premium toy that you're buying for either one of those.
Yeah, and so that's what we kind of been working on all morning. But you will be back with your wife at 4:00 Pacific for Barely Necessities to talk about the huge amount of merchandise releases.
Because we all have so much money now that they've raised prices. So we're going to talk about new ways to spend that money by buying Disney merchandise.
I will show you one thing on my screen that finally has happened. So if you watched last night's Dancing with the Stars, Tyra Banks said go visit Shop Disney's / special access and you will get special things. And then we ended up with, yesterday we ended up with Ralph saying what? And then today we ended up with Sad News. But now we actually have a web page for it, which just says, stay tuned. Disney Plus subscribers will soon be able to unlock the magic on Shop Disney this holiday season. Check back later for more details.
All right. Sounds good. At least they realized their mistake.
Yeah. So,
yeah, I mean, this is kind of something that was teased in that, I forget which trade it was, or maybe it was even like Wall Street Journal or something about the Amazon subscription. They mentioned the Amazon-esque subscription that Disney was pursuing, mentioning how you could scan a QR code or something and buy exclusive merchandise. So this seems to be part of that potentially.
Yeah, I think this is dipping their toes in it. I think it'll probably just be more like you have to be a Disney Plus subscriber to buy this thing for a week or whatever. But I think it's the start of that process.
Just like D23 selling back issues of D23 to only D23 people.
Yeah, so that's what happens when you try and clear out a warehouse.
Yes.
So anyway, thanks. I look forward to seeing you guys later this afternoon.
Thanks. See you guys. Thanks for watching.
Bye.